Hello, YouTube. Hello, Facebook. Just waiting for people to turn up. I'm going to do something a little bit different today, too. Mhm. Okay. Just waiting for people to turn up. Okay. Oh, I keep saying, okay. Just reading some notes here. Yeah, I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently tonight. Whenever I'm on a live, I'm on YouTube the whole time. And then I go from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok. But I just don't have enough time to answer all the questions that turn up in comments. So what I did was I had a story on Instagram and I asked people to submit their questions for this live. So, I don't know if you're on this one. This was a story on Instagram. So I got tons and tons of questions. I'm going to sort of scroll. I haven't looked at them yet. I'm going to go through them and I'm going to answer the ones that I think that might apply to the most people. So anyway, by the way, if you go on the link above or in my description, you'll see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or my coaching. So it's all in one link. You can check that out if you'd like to. This is a really interesting question. This came from, I can't read the name. Anyway, I did a story on, is it called a story? I don't really understand. I don't do my own Instagram. But anyway, I did a story on Instagram and I asked people to submit their questions for this live tonight. So I got a whole bunch of really interesting questions and I'm going to answer some right now. So the first one is, can you be a leader when your kid is not feeling well? So when your kid is sick, what they mean is basically, can you discipline sick kids? Absolutely not. If your kids you always meet their needs first. Managing their wants is the discipline. You don't discipline kids if you haven't met their needs, right? Their needs are basically health, food, shelter, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it all goes out the window when they're sick. Do whatever you got to do. If they're having a tantrum when they're sick, feed it, like with attention, do whatever you got to do when they're sick. Everything goes out the window when they're sick. This one's kind of interesting and it comes up quite often. I never quite know how to answer it because I don't quite know the parenting style. It really helps. This question was how to manage 4-year-olds complaining. How to make her respect things. Complaining is in the attitude department. When you're a leader, those attitude problems tend to melt away. So if I would have complained, my mother would have said, well, you think you got a tough life? Okay, go scrub the toilet and then we'll talk. Like she just didn't like complaining. So yeah, it's an attitude. So I don't actually discipline that, but I certainly don't feed that. And I don't try and tell them not to feel that way. But basically, once you're a leader, they don't tend to have those attitude issues. So I would call that an attitude, is complaining. Sorry, I've just got all these questions because I did a story on Instagram, asked for questions for tonight's live, and I got a ton of them. So I'm just looking through those. I'll try and mix it up here. Okay, so do you have any questions on Facebook here? This is a good place to answer these questions, by the way, because this is my smallest live. So and I don't always get tons and tons of questions. And also, I think I'm just going to go through and answer these questions because I know people sometimes get frustrated, especially on my bigger platforms like Instagram and TikTok. I don't get to hardly any of the questions on there. I do my best, but this way they got to submit the questions ahead of time. So, okay, this question. When do toddlers understand gender identity? My son fights over sister's pink stuff. You don't want me to answer that, do you? Gender identity. I know I could just go on about this in that when do toddlers understand gender identity? Toddlers, really? You want me to answer that? Why are you worrying about that now? Why on earth are you worrying about that now? I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's not the time. They're only toddlers. Okay, just let them play. Let little boys play with Barbies and girls play with trucks, and who cares? So yeah, that's not something you deal with a toddler. Sorry, I'm just going to go back here. Okay. If you have any questions, okay. How to deal with a teen pathological lying? Have they been diagnosed as pathological liars? Because that's a whole other level. So yeah, or do they just lie to you all the time because you're not a leader? If you're a leader, that just doesn't tend to happen. I'm going to read out my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. They're actually my favorite age. Once you know how to parent teenagers, they're actually really enjoyable. But yeah. Um, These are my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. When you get good at this, I call it sort of silent listening. You use these more than you use this. When you get good at that, they'll tell you everything. Okay, they just can't help themselves. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. So it goes something like this. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? It's not a blanket statement, but just something to think about. And number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff with teenagers. If you try and micromanage a teenager, good luck with that. They're allowed to make mistakes, just like you did. So let's say they make a mistake and it's not a big deal. I would have said something like this to my kids. Well, that was stupid. You want to hear what I did when I was your age? And just laugh it off. Like, we all make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with that. So those are my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. When you've got those sorted out and they're still lying to you, then you might want to hire me. I'd have to delve into it and figure out exactly why they're lying and what they're lying about, what your relationship is like, et cetera, et cetera. My 13-month-old son always cries when he sees his dad, wants his attention, and it makes my husband very nervous. What should, just a sec, I'm trying to hit the C more, but what should we handle it? He's 13 months old, you're overanalyzing it. I don't understand that. Like, a 13-month-old wants to see dad and the dad's nervous about it? I don't quite understand that. I don't understand that. He's just a baby. He's 13 months old. So yeah, don't try and figure that out. Just go with it. Okay. This is a question that I got on my Instagram story, and it is because I asked people to submit questions because I can't answer all the questions on the lives, especially in the big ones. The Instagram and the TikTok are the big lives. So I asked them to submit these questions. I won't be saying that every time. So anyway, here goes. If toddler throws a toy, I say no, put it away, but then starts to scream, hit, how to react. So in other words, you take charge and he doesn't like it. So if he starts to hit, you physically restrain him. You say no, and then you hold on to him so he cannot hit. And then let go. If he starts to hit again, hold him again. Back and forth, back and forth. May take ages. So, but yeah, he just doesn't like the fact that you're taking charge. That's all. That's okay. Allow the scenes. Behind every fit and scene in a tantrum is a lesson. Every fit, scene, and tantrum has a lesson attached if you handle it properly. Like, unless you get pulled into it and do the mini therapy sessions, then you're part of it. There's no lesson at all. If you join in and you start talking to them through it and everything, you're part of the mess. I always say when a kid dives off the cliff, why on earth would you go with him? Just wait back on the cliff and let him climb back up. So you got to be up there to pull him back up. So yeah, don't let him pull you into it. 4-year-old plays too rough with 8-month-old sister. Feel like I can't turn my back. You already answered your own question. You can't turn your back. You can't expect a 4-year-old to understand concussions, hospital. Some kids are just going to hit. So you cannot turn your back. You have to protect that baby at every moment. So what I would do, though, this child's 4 years old, I would put on the behavior board, that's completely free, the behavior board, no hitting or no hurting your little sister or something like that. And every time he goes to do it, you watch him like a hawk. Don't let him do it. Every time he goes, you say no, and then there's a consequence, okay? But in the meantime, you can't let him free. I'd take that 8-month-old to the bathroom with me everywhere. There's no way I would leave him alone if he's going to hit her or she's going to hit him. Well, someone asked this question. Can the in-laws' extremely catering style ruin the progress I'm making with my 4-year-old? So do they live with you? If they don't live with you, then no. They still tend to follow the leader. I don't know how, 4-year-old. Yeah, they're going to follow the leader at that age. So if you're a leader, no one else can interfere in that. Like, my kids would have come to me for everything. If I said, no, you can't have any candy, and then someone else tried to give it to them, they would have come to me and told on that other person. So yeah, that's that leadership. They just look to you for everything. They feel safe with you. You're the one they go to with everything. Check out my boot camp course. That might be of interest to you. Starts at the age of 3 and goes to 12. It's all about your leadership. Those ages, 3 to 12 years old, you're at the height of your leadership. They want to please you. That's why all their behavior between those ages, 3 to 12 years old, all their behavior is 100% a direct result of your parenting. Might be 99%, I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. What are suitable consequences for a 2-year-old? Is a 1-minute timeout too harsh? I hate timeout. I can't stand timeout. I think it's mean. Imagine if you made a mistake at work and your boss said, you go sit in a corner. and you think about what you did. Then you're going to get a lecture when you come out. Yeah, I hate timeout. I think it makes you look like you don't know what you're doing and they're not even worth dealing with. Like they do something bad and you go over there. You're not even worth talking to. Ugh, go over there. I can't stand. There's no lessons with timeout. There's nothing learned. It just makes them feel bad. That's all. And you don't want that. It's okay that they get mad. There's a difference. When you say no and you take action, you put a toy away or something, they get mad. That's okay. That's different. But feeling bad about themselves, you don't want that. That's what timeout does. It makes them feel like crap. Tell me those little mini therapy sessions really don't work, do they? No, I hate them because that's not their language. That's your language. Those things were invented to make the mom feel good. Things like this. Use your words. Oh, God, what a patronizing thing to say. Could you imagine having an argument with your partner? Use your words. Like, it's so patronizing. You know what you're saying? Be more like me. And you're expecting a toddler or a little child to find their inner adult? That's ridiculous. They haven't been there yet. You deal with them in their world. They're all about actions. Toddlers are all about actions. Yeah, these mini therapy sessions, they're just garbage. Drives me nuts. They came out about the same time, the participation awards, all that pleaser parent stuff. It all came out around the same time. It's like, yeah, never say no to your children. Oh, it just makes them feel bad. No, being rotten, horrible brats, that's what makes them feel bad. Have you ever seen a kid who's acting out and getting in trouble at school all the time and bullying other kids? Have you ever seen those kids ever be happy? Ever? It's not their fault. It's the parents' fault for not disciplining them. I feel sorry for them. Those are all the kids I worked with. Those are all the kids that everyone called rotten. I worked with them and I understood it wasn't their fault. It was their parents' fault. Now, their parents were doing the best they knew how. But that's why I'm here. I'm teaching you so we don't need those kids around anymore. We don't need that behavior around. It's completely unnecessary. You have so much more control than you think you do with your children. When you're a leader, they feel good about themselves, they have high self-esteem, and they treat everyone with respect, including themselves. You want them to have a voice. You do not want obedient soldiers either. That's ridiculous. I always feel sorry for those kids who are out in the world. Everyone hates them because they're so rotten. It's not their fault. Just looking at my Instagram story, because I put out a story this morning asking for questions, and I got a lot of them. So I'm just going through. I can't answer them all, but I'll do the ones that I think might help the most people. Okay, what would be the corrective action on the toddler hitting, biting, etc.? I do have a course on that if you're interested, but it's consistent corrective action is what I always say because they learn through repetition. So if they hit you, push them away, remove them, and prevent them from doing it again. So as soon as they go to bite the next time, so they bite, you say no, and you remove them for a second. And then when they come at you again, you prevent the next bite, and you say no, and you just keep physically restraining them, pushing them away. You're not shoving them, but you know what I mean. You're always pushing them away, preventing them. If they're getting really rowdy and they're really little, I would pick them up. They're facing away from you, and I'd put my hand on the back of their head so they can't headbutt. This is when they're starting to get really aggressive. And you just walk around the house as if you're doing your chores, like you don't even notice they're there. They will eventually learn to do what works. If biting and hitting works and they still get attention, okay, let's play instead. You want to do this? All that kind of wishy-washy stuff, they're going to keep doing it because that's a reward. A 4-year-old becoming defiant and telling us what he will and won't do. Okay, that means that he is the leader and you're not. He's basically saying, this is what's going to happen and it's going to happen because I said so. So he's the leader. You work on your leadership skills. Check out my boot camp course. That might be a perfect fit for you. It's all based on you. It's all about your leadership skills. It's parenting. That's all I teach. I don't teach kidding. We're never fixing kids. They're just a result of your parenting. So why on earth, you go to the source. Yeah, I never quite know how to explain that. Like parents always want me to fix their kids. And I'm like, well, I'm going to fix and teach you because they are a result of your parenting. So you set yourself up as a leader and the behavior takes care of itself. I know all I ever get asked about here is about discipline, but parenting isn't about that. Discipline's a tiny part of parenting. It's about listening. It's about respecting their needs. You meet their needs and manage their wants. And it's about dealing with their wants. So you meet their needs and manage their wants. The managing the wants is the discipline, but you got to meet their needs. A lot of that, parents forget about this a lot of the time, is playing with your kids in their world. Connect with them, bond with them, be fun. Children's love language is fun. If you have fun with them in their world, they feel more special and more loved in that time than they ever do. You can tell them they're wonderful, I love you, but I don't have time, go play now. It's empty. They don't care. Praise is overused, play is underused. Gee, that's a good tagline. I'm going to write that down. Play is underused. Praise is overused for sure. That's all the mini therapy session stuff. It's not to say that you can't say they're great, but don't do it instead of playing with them. Yeah, praise is overused, play is underused. Their love language is fun. Think about it. If your parents were down on the ground playing Barbies or Lego or anything with you, how would you feel if you're a little kid? Think about it. How would you feel? Or would you rather them from afar tell you they love you and you're wonderful and special but they don't have time for you? Which one would you rather have as a kid? Yeah, praise is just it's this mini therapy session garbage. It's just so about the parents. It's not about the kids at all. That was my, I always called it my weapon of choice. That's how I got respect with kids. I knew how to have fun with them. I knew how to make them feel good by playing with them, or with teenagers by using humor. So I always bonded with them. That was my power. I had no leverage with kids I worked with. I worked with hundreds of kids in psych wards, detention centers, schools, hospitals, rehab centers. I've been everywhere working with kids with all sorts of challenges, and I knew how to connect with them, and then the behavior took care of itself. They would be embarrassed to be rude to me because I know how to bond with them. That's your superpower. Does that make sense? Children's love language is fun. Parents don't do enough of that. I'm just reading these comments. I did a story on Instagram asking for questions because I know I just don't get to all the questions during the live. So I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time reading them because I tried to download these questions and they're very small. I don't have my glasses on. I don't really wear glasses anymore, but yeah. Okay. This one's a tough one. Daughter is getting bullied at school and has started being mean to other kids, 6 years old. Okay, so she's getting bullied, so she's starting to bully. That doesn't add up to me. Being bullied doesn't make you a bully. So that doesn't add up to, it's just not connecting with me. I don't know what's going on there. If you want my help, you'd probably have to hire me. I got a million questions. What do you mean? Being bullied does not make you a bully. It makes you a victim. So, yeah, it's just not adding up to me. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I can't think of how I could twist that around to make sense in my head. It's just not making any sense to me. So she gets bullied and then she starts bullying. That doesn't add up to me. Okay. This is such a good question. I love this one. You said you get the child dressed if they didn't do it when asked, but how does this build independence? Independence is not your focus when they're being defiant. It's the last thing you care about, okay? Yeah, independence comes later on. But yeah, defiance is your first priority here. If they're being defiant and won't do what they need to do, you have to make sure it happens anyway. So if you say you're going to get dressed because we got to go to school, you just have to get them dressed and get them off to school. It's just the way it is. You physically get them dressed. Yeah, I'd get my kids in their pajamas in the car and then they'd have to get dressed in the back seat. Like it's just no way it wouldn't happen. So independence comes later. That's your second priority there. Okay, so I'm just looking at the questions that I got through the story. Okay. So I'm just going to skip ahead because I got to scroll ahead because people come and go. So I don't want to answer a question and the person's already gone. So I'm going to go back now and find the questions, most recent ones. I wish I knew how old he was. Okay, he's about to be 5. Okay. My son has an issue with wanting to win at school. Like he wants to get to the door first, and if he doesn't, he gets extremely upset. So he's a sore loser. I'll explain all this. And he's about to be 5. I'm lost at this because it causes problems at school. Do you make a big deal out of winning? I'll tell you a story. My mom was a real gamer. She loved cards. She just her whole life she played cards. And I grew up playing cards. And she was a real gamer. But she always praised my brother and I. She always said, "You're such good sports." And I heard this all my life, and I didn't understand what it meant when I was growing up. Because we play to win. My brother and I play to win, but we don't care if we lose. Does that make sense? We play hard, but we're good sport. We're not sore losers at all. Mom hated sore losers. It really drove her nuts. She was a very sweet person. She didn't voice a lot of that to many people, but she told me she couldn't stand a sore loser. The ones who are always whining about having a bad hand and in card. They're always the one with the biggest pot in front of them too, by the way, all the money. But anyway, yeah, she couldn't stand that. But what she did with us to make us good sports was she always emphasized how well we played. She never made a big deal out of winning or losing. Like if we'd win, she goes, "Oh, good for you. You played so well." She used to say, "I'd rather lose and play well than win by luck." So to her, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about playing, how well you played, being a good sport. That was important to her. So I'm suggesting you make a big deal out of winning or losing. Yay, I won. Woohoo, I won. What you're saying is you lose, you lost. It's just if you emphasize the winning too much. Yeah, I just didn't grow up with that. So does that make sense? It's a learned behavior is what I'm saying. Poor sportsmanship is a learned behavior. Usually a poor sport has a parent that's a poor sport. Not always, but they've picked it up somewhere. It's a learned behavior. How to build confidence in toddlers. You're skipping ahead here. Don't worry about that yet. They're going to develop that later on. Right now, you're just teaching them right from wrong. Someone else asked about how do you build independence in a little kid, and it's like, yeah, that'll come later on. You just deal with their behavior right now. Deal with, their behavior is so, it becomes a part of who they are. And and a lot of parents just think praise is everything. You're wonderful, but the kid could be hitting other kids, and you're trying to praise him out of that. Doesn't work. It's absolutely useless. You say, that was bad, here's your consequence. And then you always deal with bad behavior, but then you focus on the good kid by playing with him or just you drop that. As soon as you've disciplined a child, drop it. A child should never be in the doghouse. I know I've been hired by people who said, he's been in the doghouse for 2 weeks now, media blackout for 2 weeks. And I'm like, apologize to him and give him all the screens back right now. That is just over the top ridiculous. It makes you look like you're out of control, like you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, I literally make parents apologize to that kid for doing that to them and making it up to them. They usually have to buy them a PlayStation game or something to make it up to them, to make amends. That's how we start. You got to give respect to get it. So if they've disrespected their kids in the past, depending on the age, we don't always do this, but as they're older, you got to make amends for the mistakes you've made recently. So a lot of parents don't want to do that. You know what he says to me and what he does to me. So who's the adult here, you or him? You are. You show what you're made of. Be an adult. Be responsible. Be respectful. It's not about you. It's about raising good people. So you have to remove your own feelings sometimes. Teenagers especially, they're going to say stuff that hurts if you don't have a good relationship with them. And you got to get past that. If you say to a teenager, think about this. This is, whenever I get a child psychologist for a client, I love it because they love this kind of stuff. Do you know if you say to a teenager, you really hurt me when you said that? You know what you've just said to them? You're a jerk. That's how they interpret that. That's why it rarely brings anything positive out of it. Think about it. You've just insulted them. It's justified. I'm not saying that it's not a reasonable thing to say to someone, but you never say something like that to a teenager. Yeah, you just called them it's not usually the word I use. It's usually worse, but yeah. No, I don't make a big deal about winning. Something else is going on then. It's a learned behavior. Poor sportsmanship is a learned behavior. Do they always get their own way at home? Do they always get to do everything first at home? It's just something that's learned. I've never heard of a poor sport or a very extremely competitive, in a rude way, child who didn't learn it at home. So I'd have to invest. If you want to hire me, check it out. I'd have to investigate that. Something's going on at home. Maybe you give in to them all the time to keep the peace. I don't know. Yeah, growing up, we were always told not to be a sore loser. Yeah, it's fine to say that, but showing kids is another thing. Like my mom, we really did play to win. We played hard, but we never cared if we lost. And it's hard to understand, probably, but yeah, I can remember that. I remember I had friends who said, a friend, we were playing something, and they said, "I just feel so awful about myself when I lose." And I thought, really? I had a lot of confidence, and I thought, it's just Monopoly. Why would you feel bad about yourself? Because I never could even equate those two. Losing in a game of Monopoly would have nothing to do with my self-esteem, which was pretty high. So it would not. I never understood that. Being a sore loser, being extremely competitive, is a sign of low self-esteem. Like they have to prove themselves. So yeah, it is a lot going on there. It's hard. It's kind of hard to explain without asking a lot of questions. So I'm just looking at my, there we go. So I'm just looking at I put a story on Instagram asking for questions for tonight's live. Someone just said something really nice about me. Isn't that sweet? A lot of people say a lot of nasty stuff about me too. Not so much now, but yeah, I'm fine with that. You're either gonna love what I say or you're gonna hate it, or somewhere in between. That's not me to worry. I can't worry about that. I remember this is a really good thing to teach kids too. I never understand this online bullying stuff. Like what I mean is when strangers say things that can hurt your feelings, strangers don't have any power over me. Like what I mean is if a stranger said something rotten, I know that comes from their own misery. Nice, happy people don't say mean things. So I know that that's just a reflection on their own misery. And I always told my kids this too, like if you're online. And also don't give strangers emotional power over you. But in my personal life, people I'm close to have a lot of power over me. They could look at me the wrong way and I might get upset because we're connected. But if you don't know me, why would I care what you think of me? Do you know what I'm saying? Like you got to teach your kids this stuff. There's a lot of power given to online strangers, huge amount of power. And I just don't get that. I got attacked royally for something I said. It was taken out of context. And it wasn't on my business one. It was on a personal one. And I was loving it. People were coming after me. I think they thought they were destroying me. I was laughing. I thought it was hilarious. They don't know me. It was taken out of context by someone really big who decided to go on the attack, and they just used me. It was good because they got all these views. They got all these new. So you got to teach this stuff to your kids. Tell them not to allow strangers to have power over them. And you do that by building up their self-esteem and their confidence by being a leader. Being a leader builds your kids up. Makes them like themselves, gives them high self-esteem, gives them confidence, so that those outside influences don't have as much power. When children with leaders are not vulnerable to peer pressure, bullying, the drug dealer on the corner, the internet, the Kardashians, you're setting them up with strength. It's just being a leader builds your kids up. You're a safe place to land. They'll tell you everything. Kenny, I've gotten it from other siblings. I don't care. I don't know what kind of. I'd have to investigate your parenting. To be honest, it's one of those. Some things are just, yeah, I don't know which way to go because I don't know what kind of parent you are. Are you a pleaser, an authority, a leader? I don't know. I don't know. Plus, there's a lot of variations on all that too. Oh, you're a grandparent. I don't give grandparenting advice. I don't tell other people how to help parents how to parent. Like, I don't do that. Secondhand advice. I don't do that. How do you do allowance for a 3-year-old? I'll show you what I did with my kids. I started allowance at the age of 3, and I don't remember how much I gave them, maybe half their age every week. So if they're 3, I gave them $1.50 a week. Maybe, I don't remember. Could have been a quarter. I don't know, a quarter of their age. Anyway, I started them both at 3, and I had this It was a treble cash journal. So basically it had 5 columns: date, description, debit, credit, balance. So it was 5 columns. It was literally an accounting ledger. Anyway, I had 2 kids, so I started one in the front and one in the back. When they met in the middle, I started a new one. And I used to call it Mom's Bank. So every Saturday morning I'd say, okay, we're going to do Mom's Bank. And only I could write in it. And we discuss it. And you don't pay for chores. This is just, they deserve to learn how to manage money. I would never pay for chores. You live here, you contribute. That's a different thing. But if they do something really special, like detail your car, yeah, I would pay extra for that. But just, contributing to the household, I would never pay for that. But I do think children deserve to learn how to manage, save, and respect and spend money properly. Anyway, so I would say to them, okay, so every $100 you're going to get 10%. So if you save $200, you get $20. If you save $1,000, you get $100 interest. But then when you get $1,100, I go back to $10 on 10% on each 100. So if they save $1,200, they'd get $20. Anyway, and I only paid interest on the same amount once. So if they spent some money, they'd have to go weeks or months to get back up and get more interest. They got obsessed with interest. They both became really good savers when they were young. And anyway, and they couldn't just take the money out and spend it. Like, this was money, all their money went in here. I never gave my kids cash because I don't think little children should just be given cash to go and say, they're always going to buy candy or something like that, right? So anyway, anytime they wanted to spend money, it was a discussion. I'd say, oh, you wanted to buy something. I wouldn't just let them go out and buy PlayStation games or anything. I'd say, no, you'll get those for gifts and twice a year, birthday and Christmas. But we'd discuss it. If they wanted to spend their money on something, we'd discuss it. Then I'd show them. I'd say, now look, the money's going to go down by this much. It'll take you this many months to get back up to where you are. So you still want to buy that item? And they'd often go, no, never mind. So it made them stop and think before they spent. Also, it's another leadership skill. I'm in charge of all this. I'm teaching them all this. Plus, and then at 15, I cashed them out, went to a real bank, and that's when reality hit. They weren't paying 10% interest at the bank. Anyway, I cashed them out at 15. They had to then they had to go out and get a part-time job. And I would never pay interest on that, that money. So anyway, that's how I did Mom's banking. Call it Dad's bank, family banking, whatever you want to call it. But it just teaches, it's another leadership skill. It teaches them how to manage, respect, and spend and all that stuff. And you're discussing it all with them. Anyway, don't be stupid like I was. I never put that money aside. What I did was, oh shoot, I got to go to Instagram now. Anyway, I never put that money aside. So I had, it was thousands of dollars I had to cash them out with. Anyway, I got to go over to Instagram now. Check out my link above. You can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler course, my big boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. Happy parenting. Sorry, YouTube, I can't even see you because I've got my questions from the Facebook or the Instagram story on there. Sorry, I don't know how to do it without doing that. So I can't even see YouTube. I know you're there though. Okay, Instagram, make sure I got the right account, live. I got several screens here, but I didn't know how to get you. Forget it. Can't explain what I'm doing here because I don't understand it. Okay, so now I'm live on Instagram. I'm live on YouTube the whole time. Okay. Hello, Instagram. Thanks for joining me. I know I'm 2 minutes late. I was running late on Facebook, so. Now, I asked in my story this morning for you to submit your questions. I already answered a ton of them on Facebook, but I'm going to try and answer some more here. Some of your questions, because I don't always get to the questions on the live, because this is one of my busiest lives. Hi, Central Texas. Where's Central Texas? What's there? All I know about Texas is Dallas, Houston, and Austin. That's a big state, too. I do want to get there one day. Okay. Sorry, I'm just looking at your questions in the story. So I'm going to answer some of these questions that you posted to the story this morning. How to deal with a 2-year-old hitting for reaction. Your reaction should be to ignore but restrain. So you say no, and then you hold their hand and just restrain so they cannot hit again. Then you let go. If they go to hit again, you just say no, and then you can actually stop saying no and just start restraining. So you're still ignoring them. You just say one word, no, and then you look away, and then you just hold them for a few seconds or whatever. They'll eventually learn. Oh, Fort Worth. Oh, okay, I've heard of Fort Worth. Oh, it's funny. You said Alberta, and I thought it was California. Alberta, I thought, I don't know. I didn't know there was an Alberta in California. It's obviously Canada. I'm in Canada. Hi, Florida. Okay, so I do have some questions here that you posted in the story. I've already answered probably almost all of them in the Facebook Live. If you want to see those answers, they're all on YouTube because that's where all of my lives are stored. Bu- 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 Okay, this is from Madison. 4-year-old son whines, cries so much. 2-year-old daughter screams about nearly everything. Okay, so they're just out of control. So what I would do is I'd work on my leadership skills. Don't worry about the 2-year-old; they will follow the lead. So you just set up yourself as a leader. Check out you can just get my free behavior board and start there, or you can get the big boot camp course. It's all focused on you and your leadership. It teaches you how to be a leader. It takes 5 weeks to go through that course. By the way, that course is full of videos now. I added all those about 2 weeks ago. The tantrum course now has videos on it. All my other courses, I'm working on all that. They'll all have videos all throughout the whole course because people were saying they like the videos. So, and I just tell extra stories in there and stuff like that. It's not a replacement for the course. It's just an add-on. Anyway, okay, so work on your leadership skills, and all the whining and crying and the emotions, they tend to calm down. When you're a leader, kids feel safe, you're predictable, you're consistent. Consistent and predictable are the same things. My kids knew 100% of the time exactly how I was going to react to anything. So why would they act out if they knew mom was going to take care of business? They just wouldn't. They knew I'd never miss a beat with all that. I was on the ball with all that stuff. So yeah, be consistent, be calm when you're disciplining. Anyway, when you're a leader, they tend to calm down. They just do. They feel safer. Hi, would you recommend offering 2 options at a 3-year-old that is not listening or is having a tantrum? Well, you completely don't do anything with a tantrum. You ignore that. They're not listening. No, they haven't earned options. No, I wouldn't give them choices at all. You're just, makes you look like you're afraid of them. Once their behavior's gone off the edge and you say, okay, do you want this or that? It's too late. It makes you look like, do you want this? It makes it look like you're afraid of them. That's how they interpret that. So, but beforehand, you could say, like I might say to my kids, I might say, which outfit do you want? This one, or I wouldn't say, what do you want to wear today, by the way? If they're little and they're really fussy with that, I would say, do you want to wear this outfit or this outfit? Okay, I'm going to count to 10 and you can pick one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and they wouldn't, then I would pick one and they would be wearing it. There's no way I would go back and give them the other one. But if they were already crying about what they were going to wear, I would say, here's what you're putting on right now. Like, you see, once they've started acting out, you don't give choices. It makes you look weak. No, you want this one and that one. See, it's too late. What you're trying to do is you're trying to please them. You're in the pleaser parent umbrella. You're trying to please them. Nah, that's not the time. You know, a lot of parents have said, not so much lately, but they've said to me, well, you're just such a dictator. And obviously you don't watch me enough because it's not about that at all. But it's like, when I lay down the law, that's it. Children need that. You're making it sound like, oh, they need to have a say in their life. When they're polite, boy, oh boy, my kids had a say. If my kids were ever being rude or disrespectful, they would not have had a say. You got to earn that. There's no way I would listen to them if they were being rude. I just wouldn't have. So, yeah. Do I want to go on about that? No, not right now. You know, when I get on a rant with something, it's a good 5 minutes. 5-year-old lying about anything and everything. Please help. Okay, get the behavior board. It's completely free. It's in the link above. And put down no lying. That is the rule, no lying. And then you put in brackets, I will decide when you're lying. If you're really having a hard time deciphering a lie and they're good at it, I would say, can you please tell me what happened? And I'd write it down, pen and paper, not in your phone, pen and paper. Makes you look like a detective. Say right now, and then what happened? Then what happened? Then maybe an hour or two later, say, can you please tell me that story again? And then if they telling the truth, they might embellish it, but the truth never changes. Lies change. And say, don't say why, but just say, yeah, I've decided that's a lie. So let's go to the behavior board. What's the consequence? Here's the consequence. No, I swear to God, I wasn't lying. I swear to God. I would say something like this. I'll tell you what, chances are you've lied in the past and I didn't catch it. So, I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm calling it a lie. Here's the consequence. It's happening. You got to take charge when you're disciplined. The rest of the time, you can be insane. I used to chase my kids around the house with underpants on my head. I used to call myself the panty monster. They would run screaming. Every time I did the laundry, which was every single day, they'd run screaming because I was the panty monster. So you can be fun, but that's because they were easy to be. They were polite. But if they ever got rude, those panties would have come off. I would have said, excuse me? Oh, sorry, Mom. They like fun, Mom. They want the fun. Fun is their love language. Fun is what makes them feel special and loved more than anything else in the world. When you're having fun with your kids in their world, being silly, that is when they feel the most loved and the most special. How do I make my son more comfortable using the toilet seat? He is scared of sitting on, he's 22 months old. You might want to check out my potty training course. It's a whole system and how you potty train. So I don't really want to give you a little piece of how you potty train because you don't know the whole package. I trained my son in one day. They were both 2.5, my kids. It's a really good age to potty train. It goes into, how you deal with all that stuff. But yeah, if you want to check that out, check it out. Difference between regular tantrums, hunger, tired tantrums. Well, only you can tell the difference. If you know they're tired and hungry, then they're probably having a tantrum because of that. So then you meet their needs. You always meet their needs before you manage their wants. Whenever I talk about how you ignore a tantrum, that's over wants. Like, no, you can't have that candy right now. And then they have a fit, that's okay. But if you say, no, I know you're tired, but you can't sleep right now. That's, you see what I mean? You meet their needs, manage their wants. And no one argues with me anymore. It was so great. When I first went on TikTok, holy moly, boy, I got a lot of hate. I love all that stuff. And they'd say, well, if you're ignoring a tantrum, this woman doesn't know what if you're ignoring a tantrum, you're damaging their emotions and that. If your child, now a tantrum is not feelings. A tantrum, it's not who they are. It's a loss of emotional control over not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. If ignoring that is going to damage your child, you got a lot bigger stuff to worry about. If that's going to damage them, you got other stuff you got to work on as a parent. If they don't feel love, they obviously don't feel loved. If ignoring a tantrum properly, the way I explain it, if that in any way is damaging your child emotionally, yeah, you got other stuff you're doing wrong because there's no way no way. Anyway, those people don't argue with me anymore. It's no fun at all. See, because when people argue with me, that means I'm shaking things up and I'm really making a difference. And that's why I'm on here. So I know what I'm up against. And I'm not for everybody. Nobody is. It's like saying, oh, this religion is the only religion. That's ignorant. There's lots of different ways of life. Like good example, I'm vegan. It even goes further than that. I'm a gluten-free health food vegan. No one can feed me. But I'm vegan. Do I think anyone else should be vegan? What if you brought some ribs over to my place and sat and ate them? Would that bother me? No. It's none of my business how you eat. Wouldn't bother me at all. So it's like that with a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff's like that. There's a lot of different ways to parent. And I'm not saying my way is the only way. I happen to know it works really well. But there's probably other ways that work really well too. So find who resonates with you. And also, if you're going to pick someone to follow with parenting, just stay in that lane because if you were to throw timeout into my method, it would tank because I teach respect. I think timeout's horribly disrespectful. I think it's mean. So don't pick and choose what you like from different parenting people because it doesn't mix. It's like dieting. You can't pick and choose what you like from different diets and expect it to work. It's like that with parenting. Everything I teach is meant to go together. It's like a package. It's a method. So yeah, follow me for 3 weeks. If it doesn't work, say she's stupid and go to someone else. But I do that in business and not so much right now, but I've been doing this for 17 years. I used to hit, but I picked this, that business guru. I like that. But then I'd try and mix it all together. I'd pick the best of what they were all talking. They're all different personalities. They're all different. How can you possibly pick and choose what you like from all these tons of different people and expect it to work? So then I learned, wait a minute, just follow one person for a few weeks, see how that works. And if it doesn't work, then try someone else. It's like that with everything. Ooh, boy, they've got you figured out. 3-year-old will say what they want to eat. I bring it. They immediately say, I don't want it. I calmly take it away and they throw it. Do I keep it taken away? What they're doing is they're going, I want that. And then they chuck it and I want that. They're testing you. You know what they're saying? Can you please leave me? I would just say, here's what you're having. There's no way. I would cater to their taste buds though. I never forced food that my kids didn't like on them, but I didn't have any junk food in the house. So they either had broccoli or cauliflower. Like there was no ice cream in our fridge or anything. So they knew they had to eat healthy. That was the only option. But yeah, you're giving them too many options, and they are playing you like a puppet. They're having a blast, but they don't actually like that. They don't feel good about themselves when they do that. Okay, so yeah, just say this is what you're eating, and that's it. But you do kind of cater to what you know they will eat. Like they might not like avocado or whatever it is. So I wouldn't feed them what they do. If you're working on this, especially, like my kids had to try everything, but they only had to eat if they liked it. I don't like scenes at the table. But I had rules. Every dinner they had to have 3 vegetables. But I knew what they liked to eat, so I would cook around their preferences. Two-year-old won't sit in high chair for dinner. It's the only place for them to sit, though. Well, they don't eat unless they're sitting there. Yeah, make sure. Do they have too many snacks that they don't really care if they eat? So yeah, that's a tough one. Mealtime battles. That's one I actually am working on a course on that. It's a really tough one because it's a basic need, and yeah, it's a tough one. So I am working on a course on that. So it'll come out hopefully the next month. So a lot of other stuff's come out in the meantime. So oh, you got a 4-year-old stealing from classmates. That's a big deal. So yeah, I would. You don't want to shame them though, but you want to make them accountable. So it's if you find what they've stolen, say you're going to have to give that back and apologize, and you're also going to have to give them one of your toys. So they have to give whoever they stole off of. They have to give them back what they took, and then they have to give them something that they prize, that they like. They have to give them something. They have to make amends. There's 4 steps to apologizing, to being accountable. Number 1 is say you're sorry. Number 2 is take full accountability for it. Say it was all my fault. Don't say if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have done it. Number 3 is make amends. Say what can I do to make it up to you? And number 4 is don't keep doing it. It's along those lines, but they're only 4. They're making amends. That's what they're doing. They're saying sorry and then they're making amends. And then hopefully they won't keep doing it. So yeah, that would be what I would have the consequence would be they have to give them something they like, one of their toys. Or if it's something really prized, you can say they can just borrow it for a week, take it home for a week and play with it and talk to the parent, explain the situation. And I would even say to the other parent, I don't want to shame my child over this, but I want them to learn a lesson. So yeah. Okay, I've got to look at these Instagram story questions I asked for earlier. I think I've already answered a lot of them. I answered most of them on Facebook. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, oh, for gosh sakes. I'm just going to read this out just to tell you this is so not something I would answer because I don't get political. Tell difference between leader liberal and leader dictator parents. That's too much for me. I don't talk like that. Okay. 4-year-old baby talks because she's around younger kids at daycare. I would just say, you know what, when you talk like this, I don't like that. Say, I won't be answering you anymore. But if you talk nicely like this, may I please have that, then I'll answer you, but the answer still might be no. So make that, you have to keep saying it though. They're 4 years old, you're gonna have to keep explaining that. And once you know they understand it, just ignore the baby talk. It's one of those things you have to ignore. But you have to explain why you're ignoring it. My 4-year-old, okay, this one's tricky. My 4-year-old's tantrums upset my 2-year-old. Which do I take care of first? Well, you don't take care of a tantrum, you ignore it. So of course you pick up the 2-year-old and play with the 2-year-old or just do something calmly with them. But yeah, you ignore tantrums. I've got tons of videos on tantrums. Check out how to ignore a tantrum effectively. There's a way of doing it. So yeah, you don't deal with the tantrum. Any attention is tantrum food. You're fertilizing it if you give it any attention. It'll grow and grow and grow. It's a good question, though. 8-year-old has trouble controlling emotions when told to do something she doesn't want to do. Okay, that just says it's a tell. It means that you're not a leader. Leaders, that they don't tend to have problems. The kids don't tend to have emotional problems or controlling problems. I didn't say that very well. When they've got a leader as a parent, it just makes them feel more stable emotionally and more comfortable, and they tend to have higher self-esteem and more confidence when they've got a leader as a parent, because you're that safe place to land. You're very consistent. Um, yeah, so work on your leadership skills. Check out my boot camp course. That might be of interest to you. It's all about you and your leadership. That's full of videos now, by the way. In the last couple of weeks, I added videos to that course. How do you distinguish between a tantrum and a meltdown? People just go on about this. I always call them fit scenes and tantrums. Meltdowns are in there too. They're all the same thing. When they lose emotional control over not getting their own way. To me, that's the same thing. Meltdown, fit, scene, tantrum. Don't overanalyze that. I don't know why. Why does it matter? Yeah, I treat it, a meltdown, I treat the same as a tantrum. Because they are the same in my book. A 13-year-old boy blaming us when things not going well. I don't know what's going on there. So if things aren't going well, he blames you. Trying to think of what you mean by that. 13 things don't go well, he blames you. You mean with his friends or schoolwork, or maybe you are to blame? I don't know. I can't answer that because maybe he's right. Maybe not. I mean, maybe not, but maybe that's why I can't answer that. Maybe you are to blame. I can't answer that. Anyway, teenagers, I don't have a course on that. If you want to hire me to figure that out, you'd have to hire me. Teenagers are my favorite age. I started my business doing teen crisis work and with abused children. So all the crisis work, that's how I started my business. And I remember once I used to do a lot of TV and radio and that. And I remember once I was on the news because some kid had done something awful to themselves and they wanted to know how to prevent that. And they introduced me as the crisis queen. And I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm not leading with that anymore because I want to be the prevention. I don't want to be a queen, but I want to be the prevention person. I want to prevent all that. I still deal with it in coaching, but I don't advertise it that way. But yeah, teens are my favorite age. By the way, if you're going to take parenting advice from someone, I strongly recommend that they have these 2 criteria. They're really important because it's experience-based. Huge portion of my clients have child development degrees, and they struggle with parenting just as much as anyone else. They might understand kids, but they don't understand the parent-child personal relationship role. It's a big difference there between institutionally understanding children in schools, as a child psychologist, etc. Parenting is very, very personal. Where the heck was I going with that? Oh, yeah, the 2 criteria you look out for if you're going to take parenting advice, because it's experience-based. Make sure, number 1, they have to have finished the job with their own children. If they haven't lived with teenagers right through and young adults, how do they know if what they're doing, they're investing in the right things? How do they know where it's going? So that doesn't make any sense. If you're to take parenting advice from someone with little wee kids, it's like taking investment advice from someone with $10 in the bank. It makes no sense at all to me. Unless they're talking about maybe potty training but even that, there's a lot of leadership skills and everything I talk about. But anyway, so that's one. The second one is I didn't learn much with my own kids. I learned most of this through working with hundreds of other kids. They have to have had experience with hundreds of other kids with all sorts of challenges, because how can you talk to parents unless you've had experience with those issues? Yeah. So anyways, look out for those 2 things. It's really important. Screen time for a 3-year-old. I never have a time or anything. I don't have any opinions on. Nobody knows. What's a good thing? How much screen time should little kids have, if any? Nobody can answer that because they don't know 50 years from now, did it damage them? Nobody really knows that. So, and plus you can have lots of kids with lots of screen time and they'll turn out fine, others with none and they won't, it's just, nobody really knows. But anyway, yeah, just have it's usually with my kids, that TV went on when I was making dinner. That was my time, and it just worked out perfect. I can't remember what show it was. It was some kid show, and it was in Australia. They were really smart with this. They put some kid show on at dinner time because they knew moms were probably cooking, right? I know that's sexist, but anyway, this is like 30, 40 years ago. So, but anyway, that's when the TV went on for sure with the kids. So yeah, I don't have an opinion on that. You got to manage that, but don't use screens as a way to keep them happy when you can't. If you can't control their behavior, don't just hand them a screen. So if they're acting out, here's an iPad, don't do that. Don't use it to appease them. How to deal with a 9-year-old getting angry during homework while I'm trying to help with a problem he can't solve. Just ask a lot of questions. So if you're trying to tell him what to do, just say, Well, I don't know what, like, I used to work with a lot of kids and stuff like that, and I genuinely probably didn't know the answers, but I always asked open-ended questions. Well, what do you think you should do? What do you think? What if we did that? What do you think? I never really told them what to do. Kind of approached everything with, like that with kids. I asked them questions. So I don't know. What do you think? I remember I used to. Oh God, I was. What did I do? I was working as a tutor or something somewhere. I don't know what it was. I couldn't do it at all. Like I couldn't, but I was really good at getting kids to think for themselves. It was like grade 3 math or something. I couldn't do it, but I was good at asking them questions. Okay. Any advice on getting 4-year-olds to eat dinner? He only wants to eat at bedtime. I tried not giving in and send him to bed hungry, but he has a meltdown tantrum. Yeah, he's running the show. For sure, he's running the show. Does he have a lot of snacks before dinner? I would just give him fruit maybe before dinner. I'm not a nutritionist, but I'm just saying maybe he's not that hungry at dinner time. So, but yeah, and then make sure, I might give him something at bedtime just to get him in sleep, but it wouldn't be something he would like. If you're really, because chances are that you're giving him something he really likes. So he's holding out to get something he really wants, or else he's extending his bedtime. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but he is just in charge. He knows it. Check out my boot camp course. It might be for you. Teaches you, it's all about you and your leadership. So I just keep checking the time because I don't want to be late for TikTok because I was late 2 minutes here. I hate being late, stresses me out. Personal opinion. What would you say to family members who critique the method? You mean your parenting? They question, just say, oh, well, crazy me. What? It's none of their business. I'll tell you how you deal with difficult people. This is it's the same thing, just what I just said. I knew someone years ago who used to, had a lot of great qualities, but also was just kind of pushy and difficult, always asking me to explain myself. And they did it in a very passive aggressive way. And, oh, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And I had to explain everything I was doing. And then I realized, I thought, oh, this person's a pain in the butt. And then I thought, how on earth do I stop this behavior? So one day this person said to me, why would you do that? And I said, crazy Lisa. They literally went like this. Like it threw them off. They didn't know how to deal with it because I was defending myself or explaining myself. And then I said, crazy Lisa. And I said it just like that. It was like they understood that I was done with it. And yeah, they never did it again. So whenever someone's coming at you in a very disrespectful way, just go, crazy me. And just watch them. Watch them. It's a good one. I still use that. If someone's I don't have anyone like that in my life anymore because I'm 63 years old and I can see I've eliminated anyone who didn't bring me joy in my life. Anyone who's difficult, snarky, nasty, they're all gone. And, but if I ever have to deal with anyone in business or something, not with my business, it's different, but like if I out there in the world, someone difficult, and if they ever say anything snarky to me, I go, crazy me. It throws them. You got to say it with that real crazy me, real confidence. Think about it. It shuts them down. And it's not rude. It's not rude. That's the funny thing about it. It really throws them off them. I've told that to a lot of people, and they've used it with mother-in-laws, mothers. Yeah, crazy me. What can they say to that? So give it a go. Practice it in the mirror, though. Because if you go, crazy me, it's not going to work. You got to say it with confidence. 4.5-year-old hits only during a tantrum. Took away iPad. If I do each time, will he learn to stop? Yeah, I don't do that. 4.5, he shouldn't be having tantrums still at this age, not really, and it certainly shouldn't be hitting. So I would say put no hitting on the behavior board, and then after that, when he's having the tantrum, you ignore him and you physically restrain him if he is hitting. But then after he's calmed down, say, now you hit me. Remember, you don't mention the tantrum. Don't feed it. You hit me, so here's the consequence. So you address the hitting, but not the tantrum. And you don't take away the iPad. That's the secondary consequence. Check out the behavior board. It's completely free. It'll explain how you discipline, because there's 2 consequences for kids. The first one's a positive action. The second is a negative deprivation, which would be taking the iPad away. You don't start with that. You start with trying to get them to do something good. So you don't just, when a kid does something bad, parents want to do something bad back to them. I don't. When a kid does something bad, I try to get them to do something good to make up for it. If they won't do that, then I'll take something away. It's a psychological thing. You're not just teaching them how not to be bad, you're teaching them how to be good. That's more important. People always want to focus on the bad kid, the bad behavior, turning that into the bad kid. But I always say you deal with the bad behavior and then focus on the good kid. You want to bring out the best in your kids. You don't just want to stop the bad. You want to turn them into good kids too, right? That's how you do it. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta go to TikTok now. If you check out my link above, you can download my free behavior board, buy one of my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. What was I going to say? Yeah, I know you sent a lot of questions for me to do on this live tonight. It's my very first time I've ever done that. I don't have glasses anymore, and I can't get it up on the screen big enough for me to read properly. Can't figure it out. So anyway, I did do a whole bunch of them when my eyes were still okay, and now my eyes are all watery because I was trying to squint so much. So sorry about that. I don't know if I'll do that again because I just couldn't figure out how to see it on my screen. I'm old. Give me a break. Anyway, I'm going over to TikTok now. If you want to join me over there, it's Bratbusters Parenting, just like here. Happy parenting. Bye now. Sorry, YouTube. Oh, I do have some people on there. So I couldn't even see you because I had all those questions up on that screen. Ah, phooey. I hate it when I try something new and I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but people are used to me looking stupid. I'm here to help you, not look good, that's for sure. Okay. Oh, that's funny. Okay, I'm just waiting for people to turn up now on TikTok. And I'm on YouTube the whole time. Okay, this is Elizabeth M. I hope you're still here. I'm sorry if you're not. I couldn't even see this screen because I had my story up and never mind. Okay. Elizabeth, sensitive child question. Twin B is sensitive and feels hurt when twin A gets affection, attention. Today, oh, they're 5.5 years old. Today, twin A was sick and twin B started crying. I don't know how to answer that. The reason is it's not a quick answer. I would need more information. What kind of parent are you? Are you busy trying to appease each one? I work with families of twins, triplets before, and there's a lot of that, not giving any credence to any of that stuff, any of that jealousy. Just say, yeah, whatever. I know my kids both tried this once. They were young, and they said, oh, well, she's your favorite. And they actually tried to pull that off on me. And they said, oh, well, she's your favorite or something. And you could just see his face. He was just testing it, seeing if it was going to work. And I said, right now, yeah, she is. Absolutely. She's my favorite right now. And he'd go, oh, okay, never mind. Like, it didn't work with me. You can't manipulate me. So, and then sometimes she, and I'd say, oh, and right now you're my favorite. And you know what I mean? Like, don't be manipulated. But if you're meeting their needs and managing their wants, they tend not to feel that way. Ooh, okay. Good one. I'm so glad I caught this question. I was scrolling my phone during my son's tantrum, but it made him more upset. Any thoughts? Never look on your phone. Never. You don't get into a conversation or look at your phone. I think it's rude. It's dismissive. It's important that you look like you know they're doing that, but you're ignoring it. You're waiting for a bus. You're waiting for the tantrum. You could be filing your nails, looking at your nails, just like this, looking around. It's very important that they know you're there for them, but you're ignoring the tantrum. So if you're on your phone, it's very dismissive. It's very rude. Imagine if you were crying and your husband or wife or whatever started looking at their phone. But what if you were having an absolute fit and just screaming and being unreasonable, and then they were just sort of like this, just calmly waiting. Which would bother you more, them looking at their phone or them just sort of waiting like this? Yeah, it's dismissive. It's rude. I always say that. You don't look on your phone and you don't get into a conversation with someone. It's important that you look like you're just waiting for a bus. You're waiting for that tantrum day, and and as soon as it does, oh, you all done? Okay, let's go read a book or something. So you ignore the crazy and reward the calm. Don't overanalyze that. Well, people ask me this all the time, and I'll tell you why I never answer it. Can you come up with a list of consistent corrective actions for common toddler behavior? There isn't. It's right in the moment. Like if they throw a toy, you put the toy away. If they climb on something, you take them down, you say no, and you hold them so they can't climb on it. It depends on what they're doing. It has to match the action. So whatever they're doing, you stop it. So I can't really answer that. If they're climbing, you take them down. If they're hitting, you hold them and you prevent them from hitting. If they throw something, you put that away. Mm. Okay, 6 and 3-year-old always hitting each other. What should you do in the situation? Get the behavior board. It's completely free. It's in the link above, and you put down no hitting. And every time they hit, there's a consequence. Check it out. That actually is the example on the behavior board. So check that out. If you want to go next level up, that's the boot camp course, and that teaches you how to be a leader. I don't let anyone in on these lives, by the way. I only did it once about a year and a half ago, and because I got a big following on here, and they wanted my audience. They just started talking about their business. I never let anyone in after that. No way. Ah, yeah, I got rid of them pretty quick. Not to say you do that, but that's why I don't do it. Okay, what do I do if my 2-year-old is having night terrors? Are they night terrors or are they nightmares? Here's the thing. Night terror is a little bit specific. It's a little bit different. It means that when they wake up, they don't realize, like they're still living that dream. They're still living the nightmare, usually. So they just don't wake up effectively from the nightmare. So that's what that means. Here's what, now there's no perfect cure for this, but basically, they usually grow out of that. Basically, if you have something in their room like a sound machine, or the galaxy light, something that brings them more awake, that they realize, oh, wait a minute, they're awake because they can hear that sound machine now. That can help. But yeah, night terrors are just that they wake up still living the nightmare. But also, I'm not a doctor. If you're really worried, go see a doctor. But doctors have told me that because some of my clients are doctors and they've asked me about that, or I've asked them about that. Well, you're asking me how to correct adults' behavior. How would you deal with adults using inappropriate language in front of your children? I'd just say, can you please not swear in front of my kids? If they can't respect that, then get rid of them. Don't have them around your kids. I can't tell you, I can't help you control adults' behavior. Yeah, I can't tell you how to do that. Just ask them nicely. If they don't respect it, don't let them around your kids. Or just accept that they're going to be swearing around your kids. Okay, my 2-year-old's constantly pushing boundaries. How can I be a better leader? The leadership skills don't really kick in until they're about 3. They're starting to learn. They'll get better with some things. But here, I'm going to read out my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. The problem with parents with toddlers and teenagers is your lack of understanding them. So you've got to meet them where they are. Parents tend to expect way too much from teenagers and toddlers. That you're at the height of your leadership from 3 to 12. Their behavior is 100% a direct result of your parenting. 3 to 12. Before and after, not as much. Okay. So anyway, this is my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Number 1, child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2, set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3 is when you want to connect with a toddler, you do so in their world. Watch how they play and join in. You don't go to the nail salon with them. You go to the park and roll down the hill with them. And they just start to look at you differently. That's part of leadership, is fun. Their language is fun. Their love language is fun. They feel more special and more loved when you're playing with them in their world than any other time. Number 4 is when you want to discipline a toddler, it's very similar. You enter their world. You don't do the mini therapy sessions discussing all their big feelings and big emotions. That's garbage. That was invented to make the mom feel good about herself. That's why it got so trendy. I know it's trendy, but it's garbage. Anyway, so yeah, they're about consistent corrective actions. Their world, their language is actions. It's not words. It's certainly not the therapy sessions discussing emotions and feelings. Oh, it's so stupid. Anyway, and number 5 is stop trying to figure them out. They're not figure-outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years, and for the first year, you were a potato laying on a mattress. They're cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. They've just got one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. So yeah, don't try and figure them out. Those are my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. I can use help with my 13-year-old. Yeah, you're gonna have to hire me for that. Teenagers, because I have to assess where you're at and how you got where you are, and then we have to do some damage control first. Yeah, so teenagers are almost always 5 sessions. If you can manage that, that would be the best usually. Once though, someone hired me with a teenager. They bought 5 sessions and I gave them a refund because they only needed 3. It's only happened once. They only needed 3. That wasn't that big of a problem. So I said, yeah, I don't even need to talk to you again. So how would you deal with a 2-year-old having tantrums that when you ignore, they try to go to the next adult? Well, then you got to be on the same page. You got to be able to say it's my kid. So if it's grandma or grandpa, say don't undermine my parenting. It makes me feel bad. I'm dealing with it. My kid, I'm dealing with it. So yeah, just make sure the other adults are on board. Why does my toddler only act out with my husband? I don't know. I don't know what kind of parent you are, what kind of parent your husband is. I don't know. Okay, well, I already know the answer to this. I have a 3-year-old and she never listens in public places. I'm so embarrassed to never sit down. Yeah, it's because she knows that you're embarrassed when you're out, so she pushes the boundaries. My kids knew I was the exact same mother no matter where we were. So they were the exact same behavior no matter where they behaved the exact same way no matter where we were. So it's inconsistency in parenting it's a tell. That's what that says to me. I saw you said children age 3 to 12 behavior is the fault of the parents. So I don't quite put it that way, but yeah, it's a result of parenting. It's not the fault because fault means you're doing something bad. It's just you don't know better. That's all. You do that. Every parent does the best they know how. Not the best they can, but the best they know how. How do I get my 3-year-old shaped up? You don't. You work on yourself. So if you're a leader, then they follow your lead. That's just the way it goes. It's never the kids. Never. People always want me to fix their kids. I say, well, they're just a result of your parenting. So we're going to work on you. Yeah. Doesn't that make sense? You lead, they will follow. I know even when I was working with kids and they would act out, this was always my response. I'd go like this. I'd go, what am I doing wrong? And I had them for an hour a week. I always blame myself. If they're under my care and they're not respectful, that's my fault. Because I'm the leader, I'm the adult. I wouldn't blame the kid for that. That's not even my kid. One of my absolute favorite stories I only tell in coaching because it's a little bit next level. It's a bit of an awkward one, but I almost always tell it in coaching. And it is how I take responsibility for the kids I was mentoring and working with. It's important because if you don't take that stance, you're blaming them and you're never going to get anywhere. If you're blaming your kids for their behavior, how on earth are you going to fix it? You fix yourself and the behavior takes care of itself. You lead, they will follow. When they respect you, that's everything. It's everything. How to make a 17-month-old lay down to change diaper workers, without having a tantrum? No, you can't do that. You just have to work through it. Because if you're trying to avoid a tantrum, they're in charge. If you're afraid of a fit scene or a tantrum, they're in charge. My attitude is bring it on. Behind every single fit scene or a tantrum is a lesson for the child. So let them have a tantrum. My kids could have had a fit and I wouldn't have cared. I would have still got them dressed. They knew when mom was changing them, they knew it was going to happen. They were more likely to act out with their dad because he might say something like this. Okay, if I let you play for a minute, then will you be good? Or he might bring a toy over or something. I would bring a toy over so they'd have something to look at, but it was going to happen. So they just learned. And whenever parents are afraid, how do I avoid tantrums? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Why would you? That's their lesson. The only way to avoid a tantrum is to give them everything they want. It's the only way to avoid a tantrum. Would you really want to do that? That's their lesson. And they don't all tantrum, by the way. They're either born to do them or they're not. It's a temperament thing. They either have tantrums or they don't. I never had one. My daughter never had one. My son, he let them fly. You're just born to have them or you're not. So yeah, if you're afraid of them, they are in charge and they pick up on that really quickly. I remember once I was working with this 8-year-old boy. He didn't know me, or else he probably wouldn't have said this. He hadn't met me before. So it was my very first time. He was only 8 years old. And I said no to, he said he wanted something. And I said, no, you can't have that because we're working on it. And he went, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And I said to him, bring it on. And he went like that and he never did. I'm like, bring it on. That's my power. Bring it on. Fine by me. Because I know that's where the lesson behind every storm is a rainbow. Every fit, scene, or tantrum is a lesson because I know how to handle it. I know how to deal with it. And then they've just learned, oh, wait, she's a leader. She knows what she's doing. And then they start to respect you and they want to please you. Does that make sense? Everyone wants me to fix their kids, and they quickly learn. I don't fix kids. I fix and teach parents. You lead, they will follow. I managed to get respect with all kids. I've worked with hundreds of kids, teenagers, delinquent teenagers. I've been in psych wards and detention centers. I've worked with hundreds of kids. I managed to get respect with all of them. Do you think that was them or me? What was it? Was it my leadership skills, or I just lucked out on the times I was with them? You see, it's you lead, they will follow. But you got to give respect to get it. And it is tough with teenagers. Holy moly, that's another level. I didn't know I could do that. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done, is work with difficult teenagers, because they're so unreasonable. And you want to be fair and reasonable, but they're being so unreasonable and unfair. But then you have to realize, oh, I get it. It's a test. And boy, is it ever. But that's why you got to take the high road. Yeah, some tips for me everyone wants this. Some tips to help you calm down during the storm. I really can't help you other than know that it's worth it. It's short-term pain for long-term gain. You'll get better at it. I cannot help you through that. The only reason it's easy for me is because I know the result. I know the power in staying calm. When they go nuts, I know the power in staying calm. But you gotta exercise that and learn it and get experience with it before it really kicks in. I'll tell you something. I can't say who it is. If I say much about it, they'll know who it is. I'm very careful when I talk about clients, but they'll know exactly who it is. Sometimes people surprise me. People that are highly emotional often turn out to be the best ones at staying calm, which I just can't pick it. Usually I'm pretty good, but I can't always pick it. So yeah, sometimes they surprise me. I'll think, oh, dear, they're really going to struggle through this. And then they just think, I did exactly what you said. If people just do exactly what I tell them to do without thinking about it, they just follow through, they do the best. I had this client, I've talked about this many times. It was a client, it threw me off, but I don't know why I didn't confront her on it. It was a mom. And the first 2 sessions, I think she had 5 sessions. The first 2 sessions, she never asked me one question. I would ask her questions, she'd answer them, but she never asked me any questions. And all she did was she kept looking down while I was talking. And I don't know why I didn't confront her on it. I normally would. I'd say, how are you doing? Do you understand? Are you okay with this? I didn't. She just kept looking at me like this, and then she'd look down. By the 3rd session, and she was going through some really tough stuff, and with her kids. By the 3rd session, she turned up like this. And I said, what's going on? Like, she'd never really smiled like that. And she goes, it's working. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I wrote down everything you said and I just did it. She never questioned one single, I've never had anyone else do that before. She showed me her notes. She wrote down everything I was saying. And because she wasn't talking, I was blathering on, and she wrote it all down. And she said, yeah, I just did it. And it worked. Wow. I don't operate like that. I was so thrown off by that. But yeah, she did great. It was really interesting. Just a very, one of those people who just sucks up all the information and learns. I'm not like that at all. I question it all. I got to bring all my own baggage into it. But what about that? What if that happens? I was so impressed with that person. I thought, wow, just self-discipline, right? She hired you because you're the expert. Yeah, but some people need to be talked off the emotional cliff. A lot of my clients, I'm not a counselor, not a therapist or anything, but there's a lot of that in coaching. Like if they're really emotional, they're going through something really difficult, I have to be very careful with that too, because they're very fragile. So, but yeah, she was just right in there. Isn't that interesting? I just find people fascinating. Yeah. And then she said something like this. She goes, I was the kid in school who never put their hand up. And I just sat there quietly, but I always got straight A's. Just did the work. It's funny. I love what I do. I love getting to know these people. Because that's what I love about coaching so much, because you get to know them. Yeah, it's fascinating. Oh, okay. Oh, good question. What if you say bring it to a smart, provocative older child and they act out physically? I wouldn't have said that to a teenager. I would not have said that to a teenager. So what you're saying is that when I said bring it on, when they said I'm going to have a fit, the way it was an 8-year-old. So you got to know your audience. You got to know the room, right? You got to read the room. So yeah, I wouldn't have said that to a teenager. I that would be what I would call an accelerator with a teenager. I used to work with troubled teenagers, and you got to diffuse constantly. They're going to test you. They're going to test you. That was probably one of the most learning experiences of my whole life was dealing with troubled teens. It taught me more about myself and life than probably anything ever did. He said, I need a friend, please. Well, you're on here. These are all friends. These are all really good people on here, actually. And you know what's good is that when you see everyone asking these questions, you're not alone. If you think you're something wrong with you because your kids are acting out, look at all these people struggling. Parenting's the hardest job in the world with the least amount of training, and everyone expects you to be an expert, especially you. Yeah. And if you're feeling bad about yourself as a parent, you look up funny parenting fails. Oh, go to those videos, look at them. You'll realize this is hard. And it's not about perfection either. Certainly, I made a lot of mistakes too, but I'm very good at making amends. So if I made a mistake, boy, my kids were all over that. They were all over that. Mom, didn't you say that? And and I go, oh yeah, fine. What do you want? So they'd say, oh, we'd love to go to the water slide park tomorrow. So I was very good at making amends. Life's full of life's messy. Parenting's messy, but you're just aiming for doing a pretty good job, right? So yeah, we don't want perfection here. It's not a very good example to set for your kids either. I used to say to my kids, I'm really good at apologizing. And my son, he was always the funny one. And I said, I'm really good at apologizing. And my son used to say, that's because you've had so much practice. Yeah, I don't mind being accountable. It's okay. You want to teach your children that it's okay to make mistakes. You got to make up for them though. You got to own it. When I yell, my consequence is 30 minutes of games. Yes. When does that happen? He was acting out. Do I ignore it? Okay. Well, I don't know the second part of that, but okay, that's on the behavior board. If you yell, no yelling is always your rule, if the parents, because you're on that behavior board too. So you put down no yelling, and then your consequence is 30 minutes of playing with him, hide and seek or whatever. And then you said, when do you do it? You do it when you're available. If they're really little, you probably got to do it right in the moment, if possible, unless you're at the store. Obviously, you're not going to do it there. But and it can just be 10 minutes, by the way. You pick and choose whatever works for you. But then you said, if he's acting out while you're playing with him, then I would just say, I'll tell you what, we'll pick it up later. I don't know how old he was though. But yeah, if he's acting out, I wouldn't continue playing. And they rarely do. I've never had anyone ask that. Isn't that interesting? Because usually if you're playing hide and seek, they're usually pretty darn happy and they don't act out, which just goes to show they know how to be good. But yeah, I don't quite. So he's acting out. Do I ignore it? No, I wouldn't ignore it. I'd say, okay, we're going to stop now because you did that. They'll learn. But how old? Because they have to be on the behavior board at 3. They can't be under the age of 3. So yeah. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you yelled, then you're doing 30 minutes of hide and seek, and then they go and hit their little sister. I would say, okay, that stops now because you hit your little sister. Now you're going to get a consequence. No playing. It ends now. So it would end if they did something like that. Not fair, not fair. Say, well, you'll know next time, won't you? I want to stress too, I always feel kind of frustrated because we're talking about discipline. That's a tiny part of parenting. It's like 1% of parenting is disciplining. The rest of it should just be fun. Just be playing with your kids. The more fun you are, that is their love language. They tend to connect with you better when you're fun in their world. You play with them a lot and they just connect with you, and you're like a friend. You're like a mentor, someone they look up to because you play with them. And I never put up with any crap. If my kids acted out, I dealt with it. But it was like done. And then I went back to playing or whatever. So yeah, their love language is fun. When you are playing with your children in their world, that at that moment they feel more loved and more special than at any other time. People tend to overpraise and underplay. I wrote that down. Praise is overused, play is underused. My power with kids was being fun and with young children, or being funny with teenagers. I always used humor and fun. That was my power, because I had no leverage. When I was working with other people's kids, I couldn't take TV away or anything. I had no leverage. So, but I could take away fun Lisa for 30 seconds. I'd say, oh, and we'd be having fun. They might do something naughty. And I'd say, didn't like that. I'll tell you what, we'll just stop for 30 seconds now. And I'd just look down at my hand or whatever for 30 seconds. They were embarrassed because they wanted to please me. When you're a leader and you're fun, they want to please you. It's sort of like a mentorship, really, parenting. I don't see it as an authority so much as I see it more like a coach or a mentor, someone that you really look up to, that you just instinctively want to please. Have you ever had anyone like that in your life? Like a coach or a teacher that you really looked up to, that brought out the best in you? That's the way I look at leadership parenting. You don't want obedient little soldiers. You don't want them just being good because they're going to get in trouble if they're not. You want them to genuinely respect you and respect themselves. So their love language is play and fun. Yeah, I do get clients who say they've never played with their kids before. They take them everywhere to go to Disneyland, and but they don't play with them. And I say, well, start now, because that's important. You play with them in their world. It just changes everything. I remember I first started babysitting when I was 11. And actually, I started volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11. It all happened in that year. So I would have been grade 6. I was just mother. I needed to mother. And anyway, and I remember there was this little, I was babysitting these little kids. And I was only 11, so it was just during the day, right? Like early evening. It wasn't late night stuff. So anyway, and it was through dinner time. And the mom said, and they had one boy, I guess he would have been ADHD, but I don't even know if we knew what that was at the time, but he definitely had some issues. And the mother said, he's not going to eat. He throws his meal. He won't clean it, nothing. She goes, just get through, just survive, basically. So she comes home. He had eaten. He'd put his dishes in the sink. And then we were all sitting doing homework. She said, how'd you do that? I didn't know how to explain it. But I'm really good at bringing out the best in kids by being a leader. And I lead with fun. So yeah, but I just thought, oh, he's easy. I couldn't figure out what they were complaining. None of the other babysitters could handle him. But yeah. Fun is underrated. It's really, really important. Yeah, anyway. Does that make sense? What can we do to wind down before bed? We'll have a bedtime routine. I actually have a course on that, Bedtime Battles, and there's 2 parts: how to get them ready for bed, or how to get them in bed, then how to keep them in bed. That's the hard part, keeping them in bed, especially when they're not in a crib anymore. But anyway, yeah, you have bath time, story time. You can have a sound machine in their room. Geez, those things are loud. Those sound machines. I had a client once, and they'd left the door open or something to the nursery, and that thing was so loud, I couldn't believe it. It sounded like a heartbeat, but really like pumping water. It sounded, I guess, like the womb, right? But geez, it was loud. The kids, and she said, oh, they just go right off to sleep with that thing. I'm like, geez, I'd be up all night. It was like a horror movie. But yeah. So yeah, you wind down. You say you play hard. Yeah, but then you need an hour to wind down. Have a bath, get them. I don't have a structured bedtime routine. Oh my God, that's so important. Structure, routine. Not with everything, but with mealtime, school morning, bedtime. Those are 3 structured things: school morning routine, mealtime routine, or especially dinner, and bedtime. You need structures. The rest of the time can be different, but okay, I got to get going now. So this live has been, all my lives are recorded on YouTube the whole time, and then I go from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok. I did my best to answer those Instagram story questions, but I couldn't figure out how to get it on the big screen. It was only on my little screen. And I don't need glasses. Like, I don't have any glasses, but it was so small, I couldn't figure out how to enlarge it. So I did answer a lot of those questions, but I did it all on Facebook. So I don't know if I'll do that again. Anyway, it's very stressful. So I did my best. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again probably tomorrow sometime. If you check out the link above, you can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, and you can hire me for coaching if you want. I got a whole bunch of stuff coming up. And just recently, my boot camp course now has videos throughout the whole course. So does my tantrum, my mini toddler course, the tantrum one. I think 2 days ago, I got all the videos up on that. And all the other courses will have videos. So if you've purchased those courses in the past, you might want to go back and look because they've all got all the added videos on them. So thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be back again probably tomorrow. Happy parenting.